often heard in the past that support in the United States for Ukraine was waning. But the opinion polls that I've seen in recent months, including polling Republicans, suggest that in fact the opposite is happening. That
Yes.
while there may have been a period where it slipped a little, it has been resurgent. And is this reflected in Congress as well? Because not only do you have the Grassley-Klobuchar resolution, but you also have 81 senators, U.S. senators, signing on to support increased sanctions against Russia.
Yeah.
So do you feel that the United States commitment actually is stronger than is often acknowledged?
I'm so glad that you asked that question. Nothing gets 81 co-sponsors in the Senate besides renaming a post office. As far as I remember, when the original NATO treaty was up for Senate ratification after World War II, it got 80 votes. So we're talking about an incredible kind of groundswell in the Senate of support for Ukraine and opposition to Russian imperialism. If you read the bill, the sanctions bill that Senators Graham and Blumenthal are putting together, this is the bill that has the 81 co-sponsors. It's pretty strong. We have an incredible array of co-sponsors behind an incredibly strong bill. And this sends the right message to Ukraine and to Russia and to the White House that there is this support. We have repeatedly polled the American people to better understand what their views are on Ukraine. And not just us, but numerous other organizations have consistently done polling to see what our attitudes on Ukraine. And the support that we're seeing on both sides of the aisle is, one, remarkably consistent. Since the fall of 2022, there was a moderate dip in Republican support I'll say that sentence again. There was a moderate dip in Republican support in spring to fall 2022, but then it's been relatively steady since then. I'm going to ask you two questions. What fraction of Republican primary voters, people who voted in the Republican presidential primary last fall, do you think now support President Trump?
I'm guessing, well, it's probably about 85%.
91.
Yeah.
What fraction of that same pool think that Vladimir Putin is a war criminal?
I'm guessing 65.
It's the same number.
Wow.
It's the same number. So Putin he is as unpopular among Republican primary voters as Trump is popular. Can you believe that? That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. And this number has been relatively steady. We polled this in February of this year, so this is just a few months old. And the public polling that we've seen since then supports that thesis. So this idea, and you can check it for yourself actually. If you go to the conservative subreddit or any MAGA subreddit, and you look at when somebody posts an article about Russia and Ukraine, all of the comments are anti-Russian. All the comments are anti-Russian and against what Putin's trying to do to Ukraine. But the lesson that we learn from all of this is, by all of this I mean Putin's genocidal intentions, the fact that he's massing troops on the Ukrainian border, and the fact that he is using this ruse of negotiations to buy himself time to mass more troops and produce more weapons and kill more people. From all of those three things, the conclusion that the inescapable conclusion for us to draw is that the U.S. cannot pull back from its support of Ukraine. Although the Europeans are stepping up in incredibly important ways, and hopefully by confiscating Russian state assets and using those to pay for support of Ukraine, and by the way, the U.S. should do the same, there's super important ways in which the U.S. is unique in the capabilities and in the support that we can provide to Ukraine. The maintenance of F-16s, for example, that we can help provide for the Ukrainian people, is something that is difficult for the Europeans to mimic. There's extremely kind of tangible and important ways in which U.S. support is irreplaceable. So it's great that Europeans are stepping up. It's great that we have this momentum around the world, but the U.S., both from intelligence sharing, military aid, we are unique. America is unique. And the Europeans can't exactly replace what we're providing. And Ukraine is going to have a very hard time on the front lines if we don't continue our support. And what signal does that send to Putin? the signal that we send to him is that he can keep going. Maybe Finland is a little bit more accessible. Maybe he can generate some kind of an internal skirmish, and his troops will come in to just settle the situation. This sends a signal to Xi Jinping in China that if he wants to play not only with Taiwan but with other countries that China borders, that we're going to kind of shrug at it. It sends signals to dictators all across the world, in the Western and Eastern, Northern, Southern hemispheres, that if they want to expand their territory, if they want to commit genocide, if they want to confront and violate American interests, that we're going to kind of cede the playing field. So I think that this is an incredibly important moment for us to all realize that if America steps back from countering Russia, we're going to have a much darker and a much more difficult world for the American people to live in.